There wasn't really much change following the critical backlash of 1973 and 74. But in 1977, a new threat would be brought to progressive rock, as punk was now in full swing, which was lavished by the critics, leaving progressive rock to the wayside. Most progressive rock artists released an album in the year of punk, showing what they were doing in order to maintain their relevancy. Some were more successful than others. Rush maintained their foray into progressive rock with a Farewell to Kings.
Waiting for the world to end, weary of the night, praying for the light, present of the lost,
featuring the hit single Close to the Heart, but also featuring the fan favourite Xanadu, spanning about 10 minutes. It also includes the first part of the Cygnus X1 Book 1 suite. It is Cygnus X1 Book 1, The Voyage, who will be continued in their second album. Peter Gabriel decided to release an album this year, which was his first of 4 self-titled albums. Featuring the song Salisbury Hill, Here Comes the Flood, Waiting for the Big One, and Modern Love. Modern Love, in particular, is interesting as it shows a progressive rock pioneer trying on some punk. The album is quite a varied mix of genres, as Peter Gabriel wanted to know what direction he wanted to go in. He eventually decided to go in the art rock direction with his next few albums, including influences from Kate Bush. Jethro Tull released Songs from the Wood. Which was their first foray into folk rock, after bassist John Glasscock had joined the band in 1976 for the Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die album, and Dee Palmer had joined as well as the second keyboard player. Songs from the Wood is a nice album featuring songs like the title track, Jack in the Green, Ring Out Solstice Bells, Velvet Green, and The Whistler. It is a nice album featuring some very nice songs. Emerson, Lake and Palmer released Works Volume 1. It is a double album, with each bandmember getting a side to indulge themselves and a side for them to work together.
Who'll make his mark? The captain cried to the devil, drink a toast. We'll glut the whole with cups of gold, and we'll feed the sea with ghosts. I see your hunger for a fortune could be better served beneath my flag. If you've the stomach for a broadside, come aboard, my pretty boys. I will take you, make you everything you've ever dreamed.
Side 1 would be given to Keith Emerson, who would create a piano concerto featuring a full orchestra. The entire album would feature full orchestra. It is, in my opinion, an overly self-indulgent and pretentious piece of music which is very meandering, and I can't sit through it. I was able to do it once on my first listen, purely so I could actually get through the entire album, but now I just skip it and go straight to the Greg Lake stuff. Greg Lake's work also has some pretentiousness in there. In particular, the songs Closer to Believing and C'est la vie. I do, however, find quite a lot of enjoyment in the songs Hallowed Be Thy Name and Nobody Loves You Like I Do. Carl Palmer's side has entirely instrumental stuff, including The Enemy God Dances with the Black Spirits, LA Nights, New Orleans, plus a re-recording of Tank from their debut. The fourth side, however, is by far the strongest, featuring the song Pirates, which ends the album, featuring lyrics contributed by Peter Sinfield. It also features the classic Fanfare for the Common Man. The song Fanfare for the Common Man is an interpretation of the classical piece by Aaron Copland. It goes something like this. returned, now with keyboardist Rick Wakeman back in his rightful place. The departure of Patrick Moraz is a hazy area in the band's history. The band members do not talk about this much, but it is widely believed that the story goes as follows. Both Yes and Rick Wakeman were in financial strains, so it was beneficial to both parties to have Rick Wakeman reinstated. This did, however, mean firing Patrick Moraz, and as the keyboards that Patrick Moraz were playing were gifted to him, Yes decided to revoke that gift and keep the keyboards for Rick Wakeman. Patrick Moraz would see no royalties paid following the 1976 tour. However, 1977 saw Going for the One release. The bouncy title track, the beautiful Turn of the Century, the fun Chris Squire penned Parallels, the hit single Wondrous Stories, and the epic 15-minute Awaken. It is the best comeback album they could have had into mainstream success. Pink Floyd also released Animals that year. Featuring dogs, sheep, and pigs. Dogs and Sheep were developed during the Dark Side of the Moon tour, with the titles You've Got to Be Crazy and Raving and Drooling. The album is a critique of capitalism based loosely on the George Orwell novel Animal Farm. This is the first time where Roger Waters had writing credits on every song. In order to combat the angry nature of the three main songs, the song Pigs on the Wing was also written to soften the blow, according to Roger Waters. This was also the first time that Roger Waters had a driving force behind him to make this his vision. This driving force would also be seen on the band's next album, but I'll get to that. So, if anything, 1977 proved that progressive rock could stand up and fight against punk, despite what the critics were saying. However, 1978 and 1979 happened. 1978 saw the incredible downfall of Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Yes released Tomato as a follow-up to Going for the One.
Your first time last, your first time asked to justify killing our last heaven beast. Don't hunt the whale. In beauty vision, do we offer much? If we reason with destiny, gonna lose our touch. Don't kill the whale.
It was not as successful, and it was viewed as a horrible album at the time, and it still is regarded as one of their worst, and often ranked as the worst of the 70s. It has some good songs, like Future Times Rejoice, Don't Kill the Whale, Release Felice, and On the Silent Wings of Freedom. However, the production, in particular the synth sounds and some of the bass tones, are what bogs down this album from being a good album to one of the worst they ever made. Emerson, Lake and Palmer released 2 albums in 1978. First was Works Volume 2.
Bass playing in my face, finally elastic. Drums, listening strums, hanging in the plastic. Keys are playing on your knees. Freeze, you shake it at the knees. You're doing something drastic, chasing the fantastic. To dive the tigers in the sky, but they can really not stop to wonder why.
Than Works Volume 1, and because of the hectic nature of the Works Volume 1 sessions, there was a lot left over, including some solo recordings from 1976 by Greg Lake. It starts off all right with Tiger in a Spotlight, although that had existed since 1973. The album is a chaotic mess. However, there are some other highlights, including the cheesy yet somewhat enjoyable I Believe in Father Christmas penned by Greg Lake, and the semi-okay closer Show Me the Way to Go Home. Honky Tonk Train Blues is also alright, but the album gets bogged down by its inconsistencies and meandering, and the fact that it is left over from some pretty mundane material seen on Works Volume 1, unfortunately. The other album, released in 1978, was Love Beach.
Hey, mister, give me back them dice. You're holding on the green, but you're gonna lose a slice. Rock and roll, bless my soul, my wallet's getting thinner. 7's up, thank you, Lord, now you're looking at a winner.
This album saw what would be the end of the band until their reunion in the 90s. Carl Palmer's drumming is as stock standard as it gets. Greg Lake's persona went into something that nobody ever thought it needed to go. And Keith Emerson's playing was still incredibly proficient, but it was going into the pretentiousness again. The first side is alright, in particular The Gambler and Canario are highlights, but the second side is a sidelong suite. It isn't good, and has some of the worst lyrics in progressive rock. Which is a shame considering how good the lyricists Greg Lake and Peter Sinfield are. It can be summed up in this line from Memoirs of an Officer and a Gentleman, the sidelong suite. And for years thought central heating was for just old people's homes. It was such a disappointment that this was the way that Emerson, Lake and Palmer went out. Rush followed A Farewell to Kings with Hemispheres, which is, in my opinion, their best album. It 35 minutes and features 4 songs: Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres, Circumstances, The Trees, and their first instrumental, L'Ovello Stratiango, with the subtext, an exercise in self-indulgence. This is some self-indulgence I can get on board with. Also in 1978, Jethro Tull released their second album of the folk rock trilogy, Heavy Horses. The Mouse Police Never Sleeps, and the title track. The title track being one of Jethro Tull's finest moments ever put on tape. 1978 was a downturn for progressive rock, which is disappointing considering the triumph that was 1977. Peter Gabriel also released his second album, but that was mostly a rehash of the first album, including the experimental nature in songs like DIY and Family Portrait. "1979 saw a little bit of improvement in the 3 albums released. However, one was a severely bloated mess. I will get to it in a second. Stormwatch by Jethro Tull.
Black and viscous bound to cure blue lethargy.
Was the last album to feature John Evan and John Glascock and Barry Barlow. They would either leave or be fired or pass away in 1979. It is an okay finale to the legacy of the 70s Jethro Tull era, but it could have been worse. We all saw what happened to Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and we will see what happened to Pink Floyd, but it has some good songs, including North Sea Oil, Orion, and the epic The Flying Dutchman. It is a good way to end Jethro Tull's time in the 70s, however, they would continue on. Frank Zappa released Joe's Garage, Act 1, on the 17th of September, and would release Acts 2 and 3 in November.
We could jam in Joe's garage. His mama was screaming, his dad was mad. We was playing the same old song in the afternoon, and sometimes we would play it all night long. It was all we knew, and easy to do, so we wouldn't get it wrong. All we did was bend the string like, hey!
The full album is a triple album, which spans about 2 hours, and it is his second best. My favourite is One Size Fits All, but that is to me more of a jazz fusion album, which is why I didn't mention it in 1975. Joe's Garage, it follows the story of Joe as told by the central scrutinizer, about how music can destroy one's life. It all culminates in Watermelon and Easter Hay, which is really the progressive rock finale of the 1970s. It is possibly the greatest guitar solo ever recorded by anyone, let alone Frank Zappa. Other highlights on the album are Packard Goose, He Used to Cut the Grass, and Outside Now. Outside Now is a heart-wrenching song about wanting to be released back into the world, because in the story Joe had been put into prison involving some events, and now music had been made legal. It is still one of the most powerful songs that Frank Zappa ever wrote.
I can't wait to see what it's like on the outside now. Can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what it's like on the outside now. I can't wait to see what it's like on the outside now. I can't wait to see what it's like on the outside now.
The final album I'd like to touch on is by Pink Floyd. It is The Wall. The Wall, to me, is a bloated mess. There are some good moments, like Nobody Home, One of My Turns, Mother, Goodbye Blue Sky, Run Like Hell, and In the Flesh. However, the entire album has some incredibly boring songs. Don't Leave Me Now, especially, with Roger's painful vocals. They hurt to listen. It hurts to listen to them. It is overly long. It did not need to be a double album. Honestly, if it ended with Another Book in the Wall Part 3 and Goodbye Cruel World, it would be fine. And reportedly, that's where Roger Waters initially wanted it to end, but he was pressured to continue it.